Good morning, concept students. Today's lesson is going to be on circles, which I believe you all know quite a bit about. Some definitions here that are in your guided notes. A circle is a set of points equal distance from a given point. And that point would be called the center of that circle. A circle is a set of points equal distance from a given point that is called the center. And then any segment from the center to the outside of the circle would be called the radius. And if we extend it all the way across, from endpoint to endpoint, then that would be called the diameter of the circle. So some definitions there that you should know. And again, take your time and stop this, rewind it so you can fill out the guided notes here. The equations of a circle. So what I want you to be able to do is recognize the equation and tell me some important data about that. General form of an equation of a circle is x squared plus y squared equals r squared. And this is if the center of the circle is 0, 0, and the radius would be r. And then if that circle is moved on the axis, then we've got x minus h squared plus y minus h squared is equal to r squared. If that's the case, then the center of the circle is hk, seeing that it is the opposite of what's inside these parentheses. Because again, it's on the inside, so we're moving it opposite of what you think. So for example, or some examples here, write an equation for each circle given the center and the radius. All right, so this particular circle has a center of -2, -6. So I would have x plus 2 squared. I'd have y plus 6 squared. And that would equal 4 squared, which is 16. This next example, I have a center at 1, -5, so I'd have x minus 1 squared plus y plus 5 squared equals 3 squared, which would be 9. Next example, center of 1, 0, so I'm going to have x minus 1 squared plus y minus or plus 0, which is just y. And then, what is the square root of 15 squared? Well, when you square a square root, it will undo each other, so that would just be 15. All right, next couple questions. This will, a little bit of review for midpoint and distance. So it says, write an equation for each circle given the endpoints of the diameter. So this is our diameter going from -1, -7 to 0, 0. So those are our 2 points. That's our diameter. So we want to find the center. That center is going to be the midpoint of these segments. So if you remember when we did midpoint, we add up the x's. So it's -1 plus 0 is -1, and we divide by 2. Then we add up the y's, and we divide by 2. So our center would be a -0.5, -3.5. All right, then to find the distance, we need to find the distance between one of these endpoints and that center. So if I would find the distance from 0, 0 to negative 0.5, negative 3.5, my distance formula again is I'm going to subtract my x's, which would be 0.5 squared, subtract my y's, which would be 3.5 squared, and then the square root of that. So using your calculator, 0.5 squared plus 3.5 squared would be 12.5, and we're going to be taking the square root of that. So I have my center, and I have my radius. So now my equation will be x plus 0.5 squared plus y plus 3.5 squared equals the square root of 12.5 squared, which would be just 12.5. Next example, I got to find the center between these 2 points. So my center is the midpoint. So if I add up my x's, 4 and negative 4 is 0. 0 divided by 2 is still 0, or 0's in the middle between those. And in between the middle of negative 2 and negative 6 would be negative 4. That would be my center. And then I need to find the distance between one of these points, 4, negative 2, and 0, negative 4. So distance formula, change in my x, which is 4 squared, change in my y, which is 2 squared. So that is 16 and 4, which is the square root of 20, is my radius. So then again, using my center, it'd be x minus 0 squared plus y plus 4 squared equals the square root of 20 squared, which would be 20. Next example, between negative 6 and 4, the midpoint of that would be a negative 1. Between 4 and 8, the midpoint would be 6. That would be my center. And then the distance between negative 6, 4 and negative 1, 6. Change in x is 5 squared. Change in y is 2 squared. 25 and 4 is 29. So my radius is the square root of 29. But then my equation would be x plus 1 squared plus y minus 6 squared is equal to the square root of 29 squared, which is 29. Next question, or next example, find the center and the radius of each circle. So we want to recognize these equations as circles. This is in the most basic form. So my center would be 0, 0. And my radius would be the square root of 25, which hopefully we know mentally is 5. This one here has been moved, 5 to the right, 2 left. So my center would be 5, negative 2. And my radius would be the square root of 16, which is 4. This next example, this moves at 3 left and 5 right. So it would be negative 3, 5 is my center. And my radius would be the square root of 9, which would be 3. So again, watch this video. Slowly rewatch if you need to, rewind and so on, and then begin working on the practice of this lesson 10.3.